From Mock the Week, let's go to the way it is. Senator Mombasa County Hassan Omar, Ambrose Weda, as well with us this morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
How are you?
Very well, Sophia.
Weekend, last week?
Great week.
Yeah?
As usual.
Only the parks that have put you quite on the
spotlight. I wanted, after Weda talks about his weekend,
yes.
I think I told him, in fact, when we were seated out there waiting to come on the show,
right.
That's, I think, the best starting point. But the week was okay. The weekend was great. We launched our drive, Okwa Kenya, Pesa Mashinani, Mombasa County, together with a program that will cover the entirety of the coast region.
What about what's going on with the medical staff in your county?
I think that is one thing also we can discuss. I think I told personally the county executive in charge of health that I have issues about sacking people. I myself come from a very union background. I believe that the right to collective bargaining is an enshrined constitutional right. It is. But
that's what the governor is saying he'll do. He'll sack them if they don't go back to work.
I think yes, there might be some frustration eating up into the county government, but they need to demonstrate some resilience. That is not in doubt.
You're part of that county government.
I'm not part of the county government. Yeah, I'm part of the legislature at the national level. So what I think Governor Joe's frustration is that they have paid all, if not most of their dues. I'm told what has stalled the entire process is the return to work formula. And I think, but in my assessment is that initially it started that they had not been paid. So they have been paid for the months of July and August. In fact, Mombasa County was one of the first counties to pay for the month of August after having occasioned a very lengthy delay in the month of July. So I think the frustration comes on the basis that the goalposts are shifting. Once we are done with, the demand for pay, then there's this other extraordinary demand, and as I think the frustration that is creeping in is that lives are being lost, that the facility is almost demobilized, and therefore, as a governor or as people in that position of responsibility, sometimes you do feel the agitation for that. But I believe personally, we'll have a good word with my colleagues, and that we probably must not sack anybody. Yeah. We must look for a formula of how to have every interest that are disenfranchised, mitigated.
I had a very quiet week, mostly indoors, apart from going to church and watching, as they say, Okoa Kenya. The only thing they forgot to tell us is called Okoa Kenya. Usuru endelea juu. Increase the taxes. The fact that they should be telling us that more money, more taxes. More money, more taxes. That is a fact. Otherwise, it was a quiet week, although the weather of our country is becoming very spectacular. I
know, raining throughout the night, the day, gloomy.
La Nina or something. What else?
It's very difficult, and our weather people also giving us mixed signals, so we do not know exactly how to react.
Yeah.
But let us be environmentally friendly and aware, so that we are not. Wangari Maathai is dead, but she used to tell us the environment can be very harsh, and I can see her prediction. So be very careful as you Pesa Mashinani.
It's become very rainy. It's raining every other day. It's flooding.
Very unpredictable.
Yes, I'm told it's that season where we expect El Nino, La Nina, whatever the name is.
And also with the poor infrastructure, it doesn't help issues that it rains a little bit and the roads, it becomes insane.
For me, I don't know why even the rain destabilizes everything.
Somebody says the water goes into people's heads and confuses.
If you look at the nerve center, I think for me one of the economic nerves in terms of an economic artery is your Mombasa road.
Yes.
I pity you guys who work on this road every other day. It's the most unpredictable.
True.
In fact, was it Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday? Everybody was on the road throughout the day.
Yeah.
The job they did was to come, park on the road,
and then
be on the jam throughout the evening, and then drive back home.
Yeah.
But it was also that I don't sometimes understand. I was on at almost at 8 p.m. I was congested on State House Road up through the university way when I was headed home.
Yes.
And I had to turn back, and then it became easier to go the other way. So somebody told me it's because they were presidents, about 15 heads of states.
Yeah, it was
but
crazy
also
that day.
outside that, I just don't understand when it rains why Kenyans just, it just gets chaotic. It didn't rain that particular day, but it just gets chaotic.
Yeah, even just a drizzle.
A drizzle.
I think everybody runs out, is trying to hurry to the next place they're moving to.
Or they're trying to get to rush their car, not to get wet.
Let's get into the stories. We begin, of course, with the one that's you're quite in the middle of, part of the senators.
I think it will be a bit unfortunate for Kindiki to say that he knows no such thing. Let's do this in life. When you make a proposal or you make an assertion, there are times that you may say something that might necessarily be wrong, and that maybe the feedback you get will tell you, just let's say this kind of an issue. Unfortunately, we even do that at home sometimes. We even tell when we were growing up, we'll tell our parents that's a bit unfeasible, in a respectful manner or otherwise. But that said and done, I think maybe the senators need a rethink in terms of whether we need to establish an office structure of that scale. Maybe that's the kind of popular view that is coming through to us. But it is wrong to say it is perks. It is not about salaries. But that is where there is a total...
What is it about?
It is a total disinformation. I was telling Wakili here, we have established an institution called Senate. We went and looked at what are the best practices. The United States, I was one of those who visited the United States. Some of our colleagues have been to Nigeria. Countries that have functional senates. Senates across the world are positioned as upper houses. In fact, I was more of a policy institution rather than even a political institution. It's like benchmarks the policy direction of a country. So what we felt is that we have been given office structures at the county similar to those of members of parliament. Yet you're a senator who handles a bigger geography and a bigger electorate. Yet you have been given an office structure that in our assessment might be insufficient to discharge part of your mandate as enshrined in the Constitution, including these things like participation of the people, many demands of the Constitution. So when we took the prototypes, we did find that senators across the world are given functional offices with researchers, offices that are constantly engaged in research, engaged in information, so that they use this information or this research as part of the policy formulation framework of the country. And in fact, so they all get functional offices, which we are going to leave behind. It's not offices that you take home with you. You are establishing an office of a setter, which you will leave behind, much in the same way the governor will leave the office of the governor behind. And on that basis, then they will need to be capacitated by certain people with competences to be able to drive the Senate agenda or the senators' programs within that county. And therefore, in fact, what we did not do is what they do in Nigeria and the United States. In the United States, they give the senator about $70–80 million annually to have programs. And we did think in Nigeria they give us similarly a handsome amount of money. But we felt that will be quite some strain on the taxpayers. So what we decided to do is to first, at this preliminary level, because we know we are the pioneer senators, let us establish the structure of a senator's office, both at the county level and and probably at the national level, which every member in that parliament has two offices, one at the county, one at the national level, which is provided at Continental, lately in KICC, and that new office block that is coming up adjacent to the houses, the parliament building. So I think that was the whole idea. And then when it comes to matters program, as time progresses, so we said first and foremost, let's get a few researchers. That's why the wage bill was going to be slightly high for the researchers, so that we can be able to have effective participation. And it happens across the world where senators are given researchers. So where do the
researchers come into that report? Because the details emanating from what was covered there is your salaries, is the four-wheel drives, is the office consumables, is the furnishing of the offices.
Because you decided to focus on that.
Because that is what was outrageous for Kenyans.
What the media decided was to focus on that.
But why then are leaders...
Let me tell you, the office consumables is I think there is, I can't remember the accurate amount. The office consumables
it's almost $500,000.
Yeah, to run the office. So in that, you're also confusing the figures. But
Yes.
that 2.44 million, for instance, is a one-off for you to set up the office, buy furniture, put in the whatever, do the petitioning, whatever that office might require to be done. And therefore, that office will remain as property of the government of Kenya, property of the Public Parliamentary Service Commission. Then after that, you have people who will come and work. There is a wage bill element that if I employ a researcher of a certain standing, who's a researcher in law, the expectation is that you will do something like 100,000, 120,000, so that you can get somebody with the hands-on experience, the effect to give you, that kind of background that will allow you to formulate policy in a meaningful way, or to formulate legislation in a meaningful way.
And the guzzlers.
So the four-wheel drive, which is what you call a guzzler.
It is.
It could be a four-wheel drive, which is a 2cc, 2,000 cc.
They said 3,000. It was very specific.
Okay, it was 3,000 cc. But as I said, the four-wheel drives are supposed to be what you call your constituency, your county car. It is supposed to capacitate the office. The office is supposed to be mobile.
Why a 3,000 cc?
It can be any cc. Because they were factoring into consideration the fact that there's terrain in this country which is not movable by sometimes the kinds of cars. You see, Mombasa, for me, even if you didn't give me a car, I'll probably do without. Because Mombasa is 261 square kilometers. Such a small geography. I can get there by throwing a stone. I can get to every point of Mombasa within hardly 20-30 minutes. So coming to that 3,000 cc, that is a county car that will be used by your county staff. And look, there are people with a geography of a county that sometimes is bigger than the size of Rwanda. And if you look at the commutation, talk about Wajir, talk about Garissa, talk about Mandera, talk about
Which focus
Samburu,
should be to improve infrastructure, not to get a guzzler which can operate in that poor infrastructure.
But in the meantime, as you're improving infrastructure, it will not happen overnight that you'll have roads to these places. In the meantime, if that person who has 9 constituencies in a place that has no infrastructure...
But they're traveling to all these constituencies in a day.
Yeah. Which constituencies can... Unless you're having a chopper.
That's what I'm saying. They don't need to do all of that in one day. So to make it sound like they need this car to be able to traverse this wide area.
That's your office. You see, when you're in Nairobi, your office needs to continue to function. I have personally dedicated 2 cars to my own office. There's a Navara car and a Terrano car. Those are private cars.
Okay, let's
so what we're saying is you will need that car. You see, don't skew everything. You have to have some time.
It's not skewing. It is the legitimate questions asked by the people, taxpayers, who will have to fund and finance those proposals if they were to be
Even if you open offices, for instance, media offices or bureaus, in original bureaus, there's a way in which you cannot tell, you will want to put even a Toyota. Depends on the terrain of that place. If, for instance, if in Mombasa, if you give me a Toyota, I probably can get to every point of Mombasa.
Weda, let's hear you when you've heard what Senator had to say.
Let me tell you, I would say to my fellow Kenyans, we need to go on our knees and pray. We are going to be skinned alive by these people. They have gone bonkers. The MCAs want money for their kids and their wives and their children. Now the senators are also here. They want 10-wheel drive, 5-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. One thing which they are not saying, they are talking about expenses. Why are they not talking about income? Why are they not talking about where this money is coming from? They're talking about Nigeria. The economy of Kenya is 1/20 of the Nigerian one. Our economy is very small. And over 30% of the money we collect is used to pay salaries. You get it? Our external debt is 800 billion. We have to pay. Our internal debt is 1 trillion. There's no money. Yet the Senate that wants to go around the country, as we talk today, unless we amend the Constitution and make it an upper house, is a house for terrorizing governors, nothing else. In fact, for the last 1 year, they have done 2 or 3 bills, one of them to make them lords over governors and so on. So unless we amend the Constitution, and that's what we should have been doing, amending the Constitution so that you are an upper house, so that you have some work. We should be talking about having Senate operate on part-time basis. on need to work basis. Is there a senator who has stolen something? Let us go to work on that day. If there's no work, we pay them part-time. Otherwise, we should even be moving about abolishing the Senate. Because when we were doing the Constitution, we were very lofty. The Constitution was done by politicians. It was not done by economists. Now we realize all the money is going into expenses. And any country that measures in expenses will not grow economically. So these things may be good. The senators may have their cousins and their brothers in researchers. I don't know what research. The leading professors of this country, even of the world, the real professors, they don't have people researching. They research themselves. They sit, we pay you to sit, and I know you're a brilliant man who reads a lot. That's what is called research. You can do it for yourself. If there's some old men in the Senate who cannot research for them, they go home. It may be good, but hold it. Let's grow the economy fast. Let's list 2 trillion, 3 trillion. There's so much money to spend. Then you can say, okay.
First, I like one thing that you said, the fact that every leading researcher in the world has researchers. Trust me on that one. You will find that I'm Professor so-and-so, I'm a researcher, and the Professor so-and-so. Everyone in the world who is a leading researcher has researchers. Yes. Number 2, I agree with what you just told me. And that's why you don't need the hula baloo. He says, amend the Constitution and make Senate the upper house. First, go and amend the Constitution. That's exactly what I'm doing. In my 1-year assessment, I've been very ruthless on ourselves. In fact, I say it in Kamukunjis of the Senate again and again. Unless we get real functional capacities, including real mandate under the Constitution, I mean, what else have you been relegated to? So sometimes, you know, if you look at most of us, the senators, I mean, that's sometimes you need to have a fair assessment of yourself. Most of the senators who are known for any gravity, the gravity is actually out of Senate rather than in Senate. I can name them by name. Where do you feel the gravitas of even my minority leader? More often than not, Wetangula, Halwala, Jim, everybody else. So I think what needs to be done is to ensure that we capacitate that Senate. Either we go that route. You see, some of us are not beholden to positions without critique. Either we go the way of the position, that you make us initially what had been suggested, like House of Elders, you meet occasionally, but you cannot abolish the Senate totally, because the Senate is important for devolution to succeed. It's a house that guarantees and safeguards devolution. The National Assembly will whittle down and whitewash devolution if there was no Senate that existed. But Senate with functional capacity, even if you want to make it a part-time house, that's a preserve of the Kenyan people by virtue of the Constitution. I have no hang-ups to some of these positions. These are not personal, private positions. I will hold this position. Trust me, I can mutate into another position. Once you have decided that the Senate will be of a certain cadre or caliber, which I do not feel is befitting, or which I feel might be befitting, but is the aspirations of the Kenyan people. So what happens is, if you decide to go that route, either you do that, or you give the Senate the real functional capacity. I personally do not want to make such certain unpopular proposals, have no nominated people, so that we size down the Senate. Then we push the nominations to what I call the houses of representatives, and we size down also the numbers of constituencies, so that we narrow the extent of parliament. You can be sure I have presented some of these views where it matters, even to our COE of the court coalition in terms of the draft bill. I said, Wakili, my input will be this, because you have to also be sincere to some of the things that we do. You have 100 or so commissioners running around this country. 15, that's why you saw that amendment on constitutional commissions. If you look at our general suggestions, it's about amendments, strengthening and possibly, I say also possibly, the abolition of some or merging of some of the constitutional commissions. We were only 3 commissions when I was a commissioner. That's why you knew me as a commissioner. If I told you today, Sophia Wanuna, mention to me the commissioners, you probably just tell me the chairs of some institutions, and probably not all of them. We were only 3 commissions: the ECK, Electoral Commission, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which was then the KCC. And it had only three directors, a director and I think 2 deputies. So I think we need to restructure government fundamentally. So if we are going to size down, but also we are talking about strengthening devolution, which means We are going to reduce the wage bill by cutting down on the excesses blotted.
But with those proposals now, there will not be any going down of the wage bill.
No, I'm just saying, when it comes to, when we are talking now rationalization, you see, when we are facing this new constitutional prospect, we are talking about also the government sizing down. Yeah,
but before you get to that, the proposals which you're in support of that report would see the wage bill value even further.
I will not be dishonest to dishonor a report that I have seen, and a report which we did make input. And in fact, Weda is right. If the size of Nigeria is 1/20th the economy of Kenya, I think our request is hardly 1/20th of that which the Nigerian Senate does get. All we asked is for a functional structure to allow us to discharge the mandate of the Senate, period. Maybe the communication might not have been effective. It entails a level of cost. And if we want, as I said, when you put a proposal out there, it could be a popular proposal, it could be an unpopular proposal. Once you have gotten feedback, then you go into rationalize.
It is secretly withdrawn from the agenda of the
It is not secretly withdrawn. Listen.
That's the reporting that's coming.
It was not secretly withdrawn.
What happened?
They went for the PSC meeting, Parliamentary Service Commission. It was part of the agenda. There was a proposal by some of the members because of the kind of heat that it has generated. It is the truth of the matter.
Yes.
We will respond to public pressure. We respond to public opinion. We are politicians. For heaven's sake, we win because of public opinion. So what happens is when that was felt, they said, let's stay this agenda. It was not secretly withdrawn. Let's stay this agenda based on a proposal by some of the members of the PSA. Let's put in some more thought. Let's put in some more discussion into it, and then we will see whether there's a necessity of bringing it back.
Whether before we go and break this.
You see, today I've had something why. In September, you've spoken in a way that we can decide, we can think that it can be a presidential material. But on the Senate, you have had, if the Senate as it is today, it does not have any mandate other than waiting for governors. Okay? So either they go part-time, okay, or we make it an upper house, in which case it will have work.
Which
and
now
we'll
means now you've also shifted.
No, I'm not shifted. I'm giving.
Because that is one of the proposals for the Council of Governors.
Just listen. Or thirdly, we just do away with the Senate. Those three things. As we talk today, the Senate is doing nothing other than waiting for some governor somewhere. Yet all these our leaders, they are the ones who work on taxation, they work on it. Their mindset is on expenditure. Just remove 45% they want to go to machinani. Remove about 20% you used to pay the external and internal debt. Remove the 30% you pay on education. Remove the one on security. We are in a deficit. Now my worry, the leaders whom we have elected to do the thinking about baking the cake are the ones who are selectively thinking on expenditure. Every corner they are saying, where do we spend? Where do we get money? They have left where to get the money for President Uhuru to worry about. But expenditure,
you should just agree with Sophia on what she told you, that you are supporting the referendum somehow.
Yes,
because even to abolish it, you will require a referendum. It does not.
So all those issues are referendum. So today
just listen.
Let's go on
to
break.
Abolish, how else do you abolish the Senate without a referendum? Just as a critical.
You see,
it's okay to agree.
What I'm trying to put together is that my meet with them is their overexcitement about expenditure.
But since you
money,
have to
give us money,
excitement, that change, constitutional change, is necessary to make that happen.
In fact, if it's one of the questions, I'm very excited to abolish the Senate. I will be very excited because
we now want to go to the Hague International Criminal Court. Interesting developments there as well. So the chief prosecutor says she does not have evidence to continue with the case against the president. So there's an indefinite adjournment they're seeking up until the information they say they're seeking and asking from the government of Kenya is given to them. So on one hand, some analysts look at it and say, you know what, the chief prosecutor just needs to say this thing has broken down, drop the case, but she's holding on. Do you think she should be holding on, Senator?
Way back, even before I became a senator, we had a discussion when the evidence started to play out, started to get into public domain. People started having discussions with South Africa, discussing the Kenyan situation. It's called the situation. And there were those who believed, when we saw some of the very wild allegations, that there was something amiss about part of the evidentiary collection that we saw, not threshold, but collection of that evidence. I saw things like Ruto, the deputy president, I'm so used to calling him Bill or Ruto, that he slaughtered dogs as part of the oath taking. Those things do look quite wild in many of our imagination.
Yes.
I mean, there were certain inconsistencies that were quite evident because people started to analyze that kind of evidence that had then made it to the ICC. And personally, I was one of those who totally believed. I had not seen the weight of the case on the president, but on the deputy president, that he will get away with it, because it appeared to me that some of those things were just didn't make sense. Having 3,000 guns in Kenya today, having a collection of 3,000 guns, or even yesterday. Yeah. But for me, I agree totally that you cannot indefinitely procrastinate. That's an injustice and a miscarriage in its own regard. So as a genuine jurist, as a lawyer who stands for fairness and justice, I can tell you silently the human rights actors believe it's time to terminate Uhuru's case. I don't think the court should grant an indefinite adjournment. Yeah, they collected their evidence. If that evidence is not foolproof, then they say that it's because of the withdrawal of witnesses. They have summoned certain evidences. I think it is only fair that there cannot be an indefinite adjournment.
Yeah.
You see, we saw the theater, and I keep saying this all the time because you see, I've been accused of many things. I saw the deputy president's case. His defense presented a litany of coaches of who coached. You see, you can say it in public domain. And last week, a controversial statement that won me a lot. Like, you can say it in Facebook, but if it's not fact, it's not fact. It can only be facted if it is put in the arena of the legal mechanism or legal structure. So no, but you can make an allegation Hassan coached somebody, but you cannot bring it to the ICC because it has no fact. It has no fact base. So I think I saw the litany of people who coached, who were allegedly the coaches, and it almost makes a bit of sense that they were people who were puppeteering part of this evidentiary, the flow of evidence. So I think my own assessment is that Bensouda cannot indefinitely, act in a manner to transgress even the rights of the President of the Republic of Kenya. And at that point where she needs to be very sincere to herself. Some of us did believe that not her, Bensouda, but Ocampo was more of a dramatist, a Facebook person, a public gallery kind of a person. You come here and you people in the media will give him literally presidential treatment. I can tell it to you.
How is the media giving him presidential treatment?
The government picks him up with all. I met Ocampo in the Hague, walking on the streets. Nobody cared who he was. He came here, there's a convoy, there's all this exaggerated security. He spoke when every media house was live. Every media house was live. Definitely,
nothing of the sort has happened before. You don't expect...
You pump these situations to that point. So there was those people who felt that Ocampo was more of drama and Bensouda is more fact. So Bensouda is this credible African woman of a certain making who I believe, when that time comes, that she needs to make a decision, hard as it might appear, she needs to bite the bullet.
And still, on the other hand, Weda, as you comment on the same, you have last week a witness for the prosecution coming out to say, you know what, I was coached and bribed, that I'll have a better life in the West if I come and testify against the deputy president.
Let me tell you, if you are in this country when violence broke out, you would have been the first person to say, look, you cannot pick President Uhuru, you cannot pick Ruto, because it was totally unviable.
Yeah.
Why? Nobody knew that the gap between Raila Odinga and Mwai Kibaki would be that close. Nobody knew there would be some kind of posturing at KICC where people, the commissioner says, oh, I hear votes are being cooked, so that the country would boil. Actually, the country boiled from KICC. Then there was spontaneous violence. And nobody knew that that violence would be more against the Kikuyu people. This country was so small for the Kikuyus. If you are Kikuyu, it was hard. Maybe unless you were in Kiambu. Then it went on. People were burnt in Eldoret. In Kisumu, I was in Kisumu. I remember rescuing a long family friend since high school. I went and took them to my village and said. So after that, then it crystallizes into a political game, where now Campo comes and says, oh, one side, let's pick 3 from COD side, from the ODM side, let's pick 3 from the PNU side, and let's pick President Uhuru Kenyatta, and let's say this one is the real Mungiki, killing people, and then let's pick Ruto and say he had guns. And remember, Ruto was in the opposition. Even if he had one gun only, the PNU side would have arrested him in the morning. Then all Kenyans again come and insist. Yet, thereafter, the same witnesses, even before the trial began, they said they were coached, they were paid money, and they were relocated. Leave alone now, these same people claiming that they're in Kenya and they have been bribed. Ocampo said they have been relocated to safe havens all over. I don't know Cayman Island and which island. This was the worst that was done. Unfortunately, Kenyans, we gave in. We looked at politics, we didn't look at it. Some of us looked at it legally. I looked at it legally and I said, no, it is wrong. I do not think President Uhuru, I do not think William Ruto are the cause. If you are to arrest people for this, let's be sincere, let's get hold of President Kibaki and Honorable Raila Odinga, let's take them to the Hague. They bear responsibility because it was them who were contested. Now the truth is emerging, and the truth is these things were arranged. The Suna Bensouda, I think Bensouda is, Madam Bensouda is having bitterness and embarrassment. She doesn't want to face the real day and say, look, I don't have people. These people are coached. Let me leave it. He is looking for which money was withdrawn, which assets. It's like President Uhuru went to a bank, withdrew $1 billion shillings that was distributed to Mungiki. Go and kill Luos in whatever. It's a joke.
Sophia, the discussion.
The sooner we ended it, the better.
For both cases.
Yes.
The discussions I'm hearing underneath the radar.
Yes.
Of some of the, you know, I still have quite some passionate link with the human rights fraternity across the world.
Yes.
And so we created mailing lists and discussion panels.
Yes.
And there are those who say that there's nothing wrong with saying you made a mistake. That's life, my dear. Sometimes you take positions and you make mistakes in life. Fundamental as they might be, the credibility now of ICC is in the balance. And I think sometimes you can restore the credibility by taking part of the responsibility and owning up to the mistakes. But
what happens, and I hear you both, but what happens to the question of justice for the victims? Because at the end of the day, that is not lost yet. Yeah. Explain to us.
I think, you see what the argument was, is whether Kenya first and foremost has the capacity or is willing to continue trying perpetrators of post-election violence. For me, I think we must fight impunity regardless whether it is Uhuru Kenyatta or William Ruto. We must fight it. Impunity of whatever form must not be tolerated. But the truth is, I think there are still cases here under the DPP's office that he had created a panel to see through these cases. There's part of the evidence that has been presented even at the ICC. It might not get to the level of crimes against humanity because you must discharge that common plan and certain other elements. But to take somebody and charge him for murder under national laws is still very, very, very viable. So whether it then will constitute crimes against humanity as a direct or indirect perpetrator or co-perpetrator is what I think that they are not able to meet the threshold. The fact that there was post-election violence The fact that people were killed is not in contest. Everybody
so you
knows
still
that.
think there ultimately will be justice for the victims?
I will continue to pursue it.
Yeah?
I think it is credible to continue to pursue justice to the very end. Justice never tires. The justice will always is potent, and therefore I think, in my own assessment, those who maimed, killed, you see, and we also have to realize that the second greatest group of victims in the PEV, post-election violence, was the Luo community, which was victim of state violence or state-sponsored violence, because they were killed by Mungiki. They were killed arbitrarily in demonstrations in Nairobi. They were killed arbitrarily in demonstrations in Nyanza. So I think all this will, and you know, the scale of the killing was such that it constituted excessive use of force.
6 years on, do you have confidence that locally we have those mechanisms to deliver justice to the victims?
One positive aspect of the post-election violence is that we are able to get a new constitution. The Kenya is moving towards a slightly better future. There are better controls. So the blood that they shed gave us a new constitution, which could not come. But for the sake of unity and progress, there must come a point in time that we learn to say, sorry, pole, let's forget about it. Let's forget about it, let's move. Let us heal. If South Africans could heal, if the blacks in South Africa could say, look, let us move forward. What about us here in Kenya? The Rwandese, they have said, let's move. Did it not take
some people coming and owning up and saying, you know, I did this, I'm sorry,
there were
and then some
No, you see,
says, okay,
look at the fragile country. By the way, if we were to arrest people, I have just mentioned that we can't start with anybody apart from Mheshimiwa Mwai Kibaki and Honorable Raila Odinga. We take them over to the Hague first, then from there, we look at the others who helped them. Now, if we go that way, we will be dividing this country. We'll be looking at Mheshimiwa Kibaki is very old. We'll be looking at Raila as a victim, and so on. For the sake of this country, let those whose blood was shed, let those whose property went, be for the development and building of this country. They have given us a constitution. But this compensation or whatever, it will bring war.
Well, one of the things that today I beg to differ, because even when South Africa was coming to terms with its past, they had, first and foremost, a very credible TJRC process. TJR, there was Truth, Justice and Reconciliation. Yeah. People came.
Yes.
They gave honest evidence.
Yes.
People asked for forgiveness for those who did, but also there were those who were punished. The people who were still taken to court, because the victims, the solace for the victims is to see justice take its course. Even this the Rwanda model, which we in Kenya like a lot, the Rwanda model, there was the International Criminal Court of Rwanda based in Arusha. Several people have been jailed for life. There was also the Gashasha courts for the lower levels of perpetrators, and people coming face to face with their tormentors and killers of their loved ones. So the justice is an inevitable tool, because justice is a deterrence. So if you do not,
then we arrest the two guys.
The justice.
If that's what we are saying, then we start with Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, Mwai Kibaki, those two. If the evidence, you cannot rule them out. You
can't just can't do it arbitrarily.
Okay.
On account, because I said the threshold for crimes against humanity is difficult to prove. That's what is appearing, because you have to say to prove the common plan and the organizational framework and many of these other things, you know. And therefore, what happens is, if the evidence points us to the fact that Raila was seated somewhere and organizing the evidence, he has challenged that, you know, if the evidence leads to him, so be it. Even if you just can't go and pick up somebody. So that's what I'm saying. Even if you want to arrest Kibaki, if the evidence leads to him.
Surely you cannot, as he says, just go and pick up people.
Yeah, just because.
You see, that is why my position is this. Let's forgive and forget, because when we tried
forgiveness sought.
Look at it. We tried to get people.
Who are you forgiving?
We got the wrong people.
Who are you forgiving?
We forgive each other. We forgive each other. Do you understand? We beat each other. You could have seen the way Kikuyus in Kisumu were running like chicken.
Let me tell you,
and the Luos in Thika were running like goats. We forgive each other and say, look,
those of us,
we were wrong, we did something wrong that time, we turned against each other as a country.
So it was wrong. The place of justice for the victims.
But if you are going to call for a pound of flesh, justice for me, then these questions will come. We tried that justice and we picked Honorable Ruto and Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. We even said they should not run.
Sophia,
it now turned out we picked them wrongly. That's why I say we forgive and move on.
No, it cannot be just about huddling and huddling and saying we are one nation, we all dress up in the national kikomi of a national dress. That's not how justice, that's not how unity works. Unity is a function of justice and equity, working hand in hand. And if we need to people to forgive and probably not forget, we need to have either two remedies: retribution or restitution. Let's say those of us who have faced historical injustices, you restitute land, you restitute. You see, there are these things that can be done. You know, I'm told there are people who've still taken land which belongs to some of the victims of the PV. You need to restitute that land. You know, you cannot tell me to hug and cuddle you, and you're living in my house next door. You're not paying rent in my house. So I think those are some of the things. That's restitution. Retribution is where there are crimes that cannot be pardoned. Crimes of murder cannot be pardoned.
There needs to be justice.
We even had a TJRC.
Yeah.
They went into what is called social posturing, witch hunting. They came up with a report which is not useful to this country.
No, the report is useful, but the Parliament is seeking
we
to
just
change that report.
Let us forgive. Forgiveness is divine.
To amend that report.
Forgiveness is divine, and we move
if
on.
If you look at one of the agenda of the Code Coalition, the TJRC report, I believe, is enough radar in terms of compass, moral compass, in terms of leading us to where the transgressions were, and making, in fact, TJRC is more about a restitutive process. Wale walifanyiwa hivi, wafanyiwe hivi. Those, and then they're asking for further investigations into certain murders. J.M. Kariuki, Pio Gama Pinto, and Robert Sauko. So I think that there must be some kind of justice that happens. Otherwise, we will lose the plot. Let's
talk about the war against terror. Last week, a big one when the Al-Shabaab leader was killed, also the mastermind of Westgate attack. Which this is 21st of this month will be the anniversary. But Al-Shabaab went on quickly then to appoint a new leader. How do you see this Weda weighing into the war against terror? Because this also comes in the back of last week. There were a lot of meetings around security, from the AU summit to the intelligence chiefs and the police bosses, and identifying some of the key issues like radicalization, the porous borders. How does the killing of Ahmed Godane do you see changing the matrix?
Now you can see that the war against terror is continuous and must be continuous, and is a global thing. You remember yesterday I was reading some material on the bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Kenya. That was in 1998. That is when we started tasting the soup of terror.
Yes.
And it was very bitter. And from then it has been growing. Therefore, as the continent realizes that this is a global war. It's a global problem where people must come together and people must unite and fight together. And the Wananchi themselves must know and be involved in this fight. Because when some of these people sneak into the country, we see them. We know them. That is why the other time I told my friend, some of these strange people you are talking about, if you are in Kisumu, they will not bomb things twice before they are told you don't belong here. Where do you come from? We know you. Meaning, people must be involved. But when we talk about Nyumba 10 or Nyumba 20 or Nyumba 18, they are up in arms. When we are simply saying, be your brother's keeper. When you see something strange, take into account. The killing of the leader, the Al-Shabaab leader, is one major step. And there should be and there will be other major steps until it is gone. Remember, it took war to bring down Osama bin Laden. When Osama bin Laden eventually went down, you can see Al-Qaeda. They are still coming up, but they are down. So killing the leader will reduce their strength for now. Now, if the war is not increased, the intensity is not increased, they will rebuild, they will regroup. So this means that my friend and all those who have been, all of us should be involved. A lot of money should be put in. And the more reason why we should root them out of Somali. That's why those who are calling for our troops to come back, when they see one or two soldiers, bodies of soldiers dead, they forget that these people, when you take up a job which says you can die in the process. And therefore you die in the line of duty for the sake of your brothers and sisters. And therefore you cannot abandon post come back to Kenya just because people fear seeing blood, just because it's political posturing. It is time for us to encourage our colleagues that we must clean them out of Somalia. So it was a very great thing. It is something you kneel down and thank God and say, I wish we would have gotten all of them together.
You know, all the analysis I've read since the killing of Godani is that it is far from over. Because you see, this has been our argument, that the war, so to speak, I don't call it a war, but counter-terrorism, because those of us who come from more of a liberal background in terms of the center-left rather than the right-wing, ultra-right, we believe these are counter-terrorism measures. So even if you go to Germany and other countries, particularly of Europe, they desist using the word war because you create a wrong notion that we're at war. But the truth is, there's counter-terrorism. And counter-terrorism or terrorism cannot only be overcome by purely securistic means. You are dealing a body blow to Al-Qaeda. There is a resurgence of a more ruthless group, ISIS, in the Arab Peninsula. You find in Iraq, in fact, they declare the Islamic State. You are dealing with, once it appears that Al-Shabaab has all lost it, there is another group emerging in Nigeria called Boko Haram, doing equally heinous things. So I think...
But is it small steps?
But the small steps are necessary. But you see, the war on terror is a global. Just last week I was meeting some of these counterterrorism experts who've come from Fasho, who came for these particular meetings. You see, rather than look at it narrowly with respect to Al-Shabaab or Somalia, they look at it broadly. What inspirations will the ISIS, the Islamic State or ISIS give? Is there a reorganization or a meeting of minds? You see, that's why immediately after ISIS, Boko Haram went and declared an Islamic State of their own, because it will provide a new inspiration. So my own view is we need to build on our capacity in terms of intelligence gathering. We need to build on our capacity in terms of training. But even we need to deal with the social causes. Everybody refuses to mitigate the social causes that leads to terrorism. That process of despair, the process of radicalization.
And that's what the actual intelligence bosses asked the president to focus on.
Yeah, to the elements of violent extremism. These are phases. So when you put me in a situation that, you see, I could have easily taken up a gun if I had no hope in life. But here I was, Lenana School. From Lenana School you go into law school. From law school you go into a commission. So therefore, constantly your prospects in life appear to shine somehow. You see what people call light at the end of the tunnel. You see that you can put a plate of food. You become a journalist here, he's a lawyer. So we need to continue to mitigate. So we need to deal with the social causes, poverty. We need to deal with undereducation, ignorance, all these issues. And then, as I said, there's one thing we need is a counter-narrative. Because the narrative in terms of terrorism focuses on a global agenda rather than even just a narrow agenda. The victimization of Muslims, so to speak, the lack of basic rights, the historical marginalization. That's why Kimayo, for me, I keep telling people, I have a very soft spot for him on the basis that he is in the most interesting position, I think, in our entire constitutional arrangement. And I have my factors for that. But again, he finds it very convenient to simply say, because you see, there are certain potent social causes that are inherent in the cost, which MRC probably bears. First and foremost, quite a larger group of that followership probably is Muslim, despite the fact that MRC is not a Muslim organization. And there are all these elements of despair, hopelessness, landlessness, marginalization. So there are factors that can easily breed, becomes the grounds of recruitment. So I think unless we also be proactive in terms of creating alternative social structures for counter-narrative, for counter-terrorism, there will be quite...
what do you say to the counter-narrative?
It talks very nicely. We need to train, we need to do what. But when they go to the Senate, instead of saying channel this money to train and capacity building, their training, their officers, their researchers, and so on.
But you just said the Senate has no power.
Understand? You understand this thing?
You just said
Now,
the Senate has no power. So
they're
that's
talking
why,
about,
that's why
and
now I
then
present these ideas. I presented these ideas to other frameworks that can also evaluate and take them on.
Then one thing you can look at is, you looked at when the government went to Isile, security forces went to Isile to say there's elements here who are not part of us and they're causing a problem. He made noise and others made noise. They looked at it as religion. We were not saying religion. We were saying there are elements here from outside. They're hiding amongst us. You have seen after that, there has been something positive. So the fight against terror, I agree with some of the things he says, but we will be looking at the social causes. Okay, the ones who have gone to the extreme, we will deal with them the way.
He said there's been something positive, but this is a US airstrike, had nothing to do with what happened in Isli.
What we are saying, those who are throwing grenades and every matatu passing, you hardly hear them these days because they were there. That's where they were hiding. When we went there and they were showing the IDs and we showed them, oh, you have an ID, eh?
Right.
Who is Raila Odinga? Then they say, Raila Odinga? We don't know that one. Say, you are not Kenyan. So work is going on. It is not against the Muslims. It's against the terrorists. And a terrorist, whether it's a Luo or a Kisi or a Muslim, is a terrorist and should be dealt with.
All right.
That's easier said here on paper, but I think in reality it's a different manifestation. Much in the same way you say I'm presenting, but my ideas are not lofty. The ideas that have been our best practices in counterterrorism across the world. We have taken a bit of time and trouble to delve into some of these discussions because they are pertinent, and it's a constituency that I represent. It is directly affected. If the sizable number of the Muslims live in Mombasa County, the areas that have been most affected are areas in Majengo and other areas of Mombasa. The whole of NFD, Northern Frontier, I mean the northern districts of particularly Mandera, Wajir, Garissa have had a severe terror activities or threats. So I think these are areas that I cannot alienate myself from, and therefore we contribute. But so we ask you. That's why we come back to the constitutionalism when you defend or partake to do anything, demonstrate your commitment, but you don't victimize an entire society. Right. You let the intelligence guide you.
The vetting that has been going on, they concluded that last week, the DG vetting of the Director General nominee for NIS and other ambassadorial positions. For Kameru, the Major General, Honorable Kaluma comes out to say, and is asking Parliament to reject him, purely on the basis of that it will entrench, he says, ethnicization, and wants the nominee out of not from the president's backyard. So what your thoughts on that are, as well as what emerged from the other nominees like Sam Wangeri? The question of age, took center stage as he was being grilled by the Defense and Foreign Relations Committee. Weda.
Let me start with Sam Wangeri. Sam Wangeri, I think, went for his payment, having been in the Jubilee Coalition, and the job he was given, he had done it before. And then age, I agree.
76?
If you look at Raila Odinga, he looks younger than some of us. Even his brain is clearer because of some people are 30, but they're 100 in terms of their age. But for the sake of the country, I think if you look at the president, they were in a team with Professor Wangeri. Therefore, he would be hit that you are with this fellow, you left him out. You are with these people, you left them out in your government, and they're able. But I also thought it would have been incumbent upon Honorable Wangeri himself to reach a point when he says, I have done my public service, it is time to call it a day.
You think he's too old?
The age element in Kenya, the age element in Kenya, the retirement age is 60, 65, judges 70. Okay? So it would have been incumbent on him to say, I have done my role, I have ushered in the new generation, let me call it a day. But if he doesn't, the president somehow is duty bound to look at his teammates and say, for me not to be hit, that I left out so I left, so I discriminated so, and they're able, let me give him an assignment. I know he can do the assignment, and I know he'll do it well. And you saw him in Parliament, he was doing a very good, he was answering very effectively, his brain is clear. But his age is that it was him. So we'll call upon him and say, Professor Ngeri, do 1 year and quit. With regard to the other gentleman for NSI, I remember when, historically, when Jeff Kennedy appointed his brother to be Attorney General of the US, and everybody said, look, this is your brother. He said, why should we discriminate upon him on the basis that he's my brother? Let us not discriminate against a Kenyan appointed on the basis of his tribe. Okay? If he can do the job, let him do it. But we can call upon the president to say, Your Excellency, now that NSIS is a man from your backyard. NIS. If now that NIS is a man from your backyard, Kimayo is from Kalenjin.
Deputy President.
Yes, then get this other fellow from Rendile so that you have the face of Kenya. But let's not zero in on the person who was appointed. Let us zero in broadly on the positions available and then in the sharing them out. Because the security docket is very sensitive. It is not where you pick anybody just because it's a Rendile or is a Kisi or a Giriama. This is a person who briefs the president on a daily basis. They can't force somebody you don't like near you just because it's a Rendile. Okay. You need somebody that you even like his smell when he walks into your office.
Senator.
I think that is a bit trivializing the matter. Said it done. First and foremost, on the basis of age. I'm a young person. I advocate for opportunities for the young. But that is not to mean we victimize the old. We need to create that balance. That I hold very dearly. I say it even in public forums. That yes, in the construct of a government, you want to see this emergence, this nurturing of young talent. I was told there's an ambassador as young as 35 to a very strategic country called Canada.
Canada should be the youngest.
Which I think is that. So also equally, then the old can say you're sending in experience to one of Kenya's strategic partners. So I think we need to create a balance that I personally will tell you without contradiction that in a list of 20, if you have one guy over the age of 70, I probably would not mind it, because I think we need to also be very, very rational. Let's not create that scaremongering there that we make every old person feel that they're not welcomed in this nation anymore. I think it would just be unfair and unjust, and I think these are rights that we must be equitable about. So I will deal more with the competence issues, the alertness issues of someone get it rather than the age issue. I think. And I would have looked at the broader construct of the people who've been nominated. I think it is just it's not right to victimize him, as he probably is the one who represents the senior citizens of the Republic of Kenya, and they also have their space and their and what I find quite a contradiction for many of us, also young people. Whenever we are seeking these political positions, you're going to the elders for blessings. You're sitting them down. Umeenda kwa wazee wa mtaa wanisaidie kupata kura ya mtaa hii, unaenda kwa mzee wa mtaa hii, then immediately after you are in it, you don't think about also how you can enhance them politically. And in fact, that's why I've been encouraging the county government of Mombasa to create a fund for the elders, because you will realize some of them after their retirement even get worse off. Mtu amefanya kazi KPA for some time. He did well with his family. He was in the SACCO. He was able to assist then finally he's out. He just gets desperate. You see him anaanza kuchaka. And then on the Kamweru issue, that's a position I hold. You see, we're looking at the broader composition, let's say, of the National Security Council, where decisions are made. So you need to continue to look at this security machineries, apparatus in a broader sense. So you're skewing the entire arrangement. So when CORD talks about diversity, regional representation, I don't buy this issues that the only competence can have come from Kamweru. I believe personally, and I said it then and I can say it now, that there are probably generals there of similar or greater competence. It's just that the politics have not favored them at this point in time. So I also believe that it is not about who is your friend and who is, in fact, sometimes if you want to make the most effective decisions in life, you are better off to have close to you people who divorce themselves from the emotions and the compassions that tie and blur up objectivity in public office.
All right, our time is up, but very quickly, there was a biometric registration of public servants that was launched last week. It has drawn some mixed reactions. You have court coming out to say that it would be used as a way to retrench some of the public servants. Your views very briefly.
My view is the entire country should go biometric. That is the only way. We have IDs with the names. People are not identified by names. God gave us identity, and that identity is on our thumbprint. That's what distinguishes me and you, plus the face, so that we have a soft copy, so that when somebody walks in and says, I'm a Kenyan, or I'm not a Kenyan, you're able to check. So biometric is for the entire country. Biometric will eliminate the so-called rigging. Biometric will improve our security. That is the way. That is what is in America. That's what is in Britain. So those who are opposing it, that it will lead to retrenchment. How? If you are employed and you ask to give your biometric, it is only that those who have been taking 10, 20 salaries, saying so and so is employed because they have provided names and bank accounts, they know their days are numbered. But this country, biometric is the way to go for everybody above the age of 13.
Finally,
for me, I think it's more about the referendum. I don't want to forget that point, because I think these are easy things. These are issues that it depends on what position, where you can make as many analogies. You see, initially when we talked about people not respecting the court position from within and told them to box out, it was thought that we were being undemocratic. It's the principle and the rule of governance lately that parties and coalitions are the avenues for political competition and expression. And if you have an issue with your coalition, it says that you can decide to be an independent candidate. So I'm here saying Uhuru Kenyatta also telling people, the president, to box out of the coalition. Why? So aspirations of democracy are not coming to fruition. But anyway, my greatest pleasure in my heart is the fact that we launched our referendum drive in Mombasa. There was overwhelming support. We've gotten overwhelming calls. The governor, myself, Honorable Bazemba, Honorable Badi, Honorable Twalib, Mwinyi, Mishi, Mboko. People, and we want to assure people that these books will get to the ground. They will sign this referendum documents. We are going to we have a program for the entire coast region. I think part of which the principles of the Code Coalition will come. And I can tell you this referendum will carry heavily, particularly in the coast region, and that is the guarantee in terms of assurance that we will put our seal of approval to enshrine constitutionalism. We will mitigate the economic costs where they're talking about. But I'm confident that this referendum push is the way to go, and we have overwhelming. We appreciate the overwhelming support from the Kenyan people.
There are no questions on those booklets. We don't know whether to abolish the
suggestions. General suggestions. It's go back. It is agreed.
Today we have steered away from the referendum to at least focus on other matters.
No.
But
the referendum is the most important.
It is the most important
of our day today.
Yes.
In terms of for the next. In fact, if you look at the referendum program, just if you were to say to do the maximum ceiling, then the nearest we'll have the referendum is in about 9 months. Because once we do the referendum questions, then there's 3 months for the IBC to take this bill to the counties. The counties have 3 months to approve it. Then it comes to the National Assembly.
Last time you told us it's IBC that's drafting the bill. It is not the IBC.
I said I was going to clarify that point, which I did. You see, when I don't know something, I don't not know. And I said I was not quite sure. Okay. What we said is that the sponsors, after taking these general questions, we will draft that bill. Once we draft that bill, then IBC takes ownership, because it will be transmitted to the counties, to the county assemblies, the 47 counties, by the IBC for their vote.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Ambrose Weda, Hassan Omar, Senator, Mombasa County. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Have a lovely week.
Of the week, yes. Thank you very much. And
thank you. I hope the Senator has given his biometrics. There will be more jobs. Because
I listened to Wilson Buru. You are not allowed to hold office if you are a public servant. So Uhuru should resign. You did listen to Wilson Buru. Quite a clever argument.
Yes. All right. Stay with us. When we come back on Your Health today, we focus on hair disorders. Yes, hair disorders.